Let's go back. Before you knew. Before any of this made sense. You grew up in what looked, from the outside, like a perfectly normal family. Maybe loud. Maybe quiet. Maybe somewhere in between. There were holidays. There were dinners. There were inside jokes you were sometimes in on and sometimes just adjacent to. You noticed things, of course. Small things. Why your cousin always sat at the head of the table when Grandpa wasn't there. Why your aunt spoke to your mother in a tone that was never quite equal. Why certain cousins got called first, got asked first, got trusted first. But you didn't have a word for it, so you filed it under family dynamics and moved on. Because what you were actually watching, without the language to name it, was a system. Old, deliberate, inherited. Your family didn't just have relationships. They had a structure, a ranking, a quiet, unspoken agreement about who mattered more, who got more, and who was simply there. And this system, this hierarchy, had been running long before you were born. You were just the last one to get the memo. It starts the way most life-altering discoveries start. Not with a dramatic confrontation, not with a confession, with something small, something accidental. Music begins. Low building. Maybe it's a conversation you overhear at a funeral. Maybe it's a group chat you're accidentally added to, and just as quickly removed from. Maybe it's a legal document, a will, an old letter. Or maybe, and this is the one that hits hardest, maybe it's just a look exchanged between your mother and your uncle when you announce something big. Promotion, an engagement, a decision. A look that says, we expected this. Not in a proud way, in a categorized way. For the purposes of this story, your story, let's say it's a document. A literal, physical document. You find it while helping clean out your grandmother's house after she passes. Plain folder, mislabeled, sitting between old tax returns and recipe clippings. You open it because you're bored, because you're grieving, because that's what people do when they're trying to feel close to someone they just lost. Inside is a handwritten chart. Names, connected by lines, with notes beside each one. Beat. Your grandmother's handwriting. Longer beat. And there, on that chart, is your entire family. Ranked. There are tiers. Clear ones. Tier 1, your grandmother's words, is labeled the pillars. 2 names. Your uncle, your mother's oldest sister, the ones trusted with money, decisions, family emergencies. Tier 2 is labeled the reliable, for names, good people, called upon often, trusted, but supervised. Tier 3, the supported, people the family loves, but invests in rather than consults. Tier 4, the distant, there by blood, not by function. And then, at the very bottom of the page, almost as an afterthought, a 5th tier. No label, just names. Music drops to near silence. And yours is one of them. Now, let's slow down, because this is where most people make a mistake. They see the ranking and they react. They feel the insult before they understand the system. So let's do what your grandmother apparently spent decades doing. Let's break it down. Level by level. Tier 1 isn't about love. Your grandmother wasn't ranking who she loved most. Tier 1 is about reliability under pressure. The pillars are the people who, when the family faces a true crisis, financial collapse, medical emergency, legal trouble, death, will show up, make decisions, and hold structure together. They're not always the warmest people. In fact, they're often the coldest. Because warmth is a luxury, stability is a function. In most families, there are 1, maybe 2 people in this tier. They carry a weight no one talks about openly. And in exchange, they get access to information, to resources, to the family's actual truth. Tier 2 are the workers, the ones who get called but not consulted. They're trusted to execute, not to decide. They show up to help move furniture. They're the ones who organize the logistics of family events. They're in the group chat, but not that group chat. You've met them. They always seem slightly busy with something family-related. Always helpful. Always present. But if you've ever watched carefully, they always look to someone in Tier 1 before they speak in a serious conversation. Beat. They've been trained to. Tier 3 is where things get complicated emotionally, because Tier 3 people are loved. Genuinely. They're the ones everyone roots for, the ones who get helped. Financially, emotionally, practically. The family shows up for them, not with them. There's a difference. Showing up with someone means you trust their judgment. Showing up for someone means you're managing their outcomes. Beat. Tier 3 people are often the most pleasant people in the family, the most grateful, the most expressive with love, and completely, systematically excluded from any real power. Tier 4 is not a punishment. It's a description. These are the family members who, for whatever reason, geography, temperament, life choices, exist at the periphery. They come to Christmas. They're invited to weddings. No one dislikes them. But they are not factored into decisions. They are not consulted. They are not trusted with sensitive information. They are, functionally, guests at a party they were born into. And then there's the tier with no label. Your tier. Music shifts. Something colder. The unnamed tier is not about being unloved. It's not even about being disliked. It's about being unclassified. In your grandmother's system, the unnamed tier was reserved for people the family had simply not figured out yet, or people the family had decided, quietly, collectively, were too unpredictable to place, too independent, too likely to break the rules of the system just by existing outside of it. You weren't ranked last because you failed. Beat. You were ranked last because you couldn't be controlled. And in a hierarchy built on control, that's the most dangerous thing you can be. Here's where the story stops being your grandmother's and starts being yours. Because now you know. You've sat with the document. You've thought through every holiday, every phone call, every moment someone looked at you with that particular kind of patient, managed warmth. And you have to make a choice. Beat. Not one choice. 3. You confront the family. You bring the document. You name the system out loud at the next gathering, Thanksgiving, a birthday, someone's graduation, and you watch what happens. This option feels like justice, feels like truth. But here's what actually happens. The pillars deny it. Calmly. They've had years of practice managing exactly this kind of disruption. The reliable side with the pillars, because their status depends on the system surviving. The supported feel terrible, but do nothing. They can't afford to. The distant don't fully understand what just happened. And you've confirmed exactly what the system always said about you. Unpredictable. Disruptive. The reason we never told you. You win the argument. You lose the family. You say nothing. You put the document back. But now you know the rules. You start observing differently. You study the pillars, how they speak, what they protect, who they trust. You begin making strategic moves, showing reliability, showing up when it counts, quietly removing the behaviors that got you classified as unpredictable. Over years, you climb. Maybe you make it to Tier 3, maybe Tier 2, maybe, if you're extraordinarily disciplined, Tier 1. Beat. But here's the cost. Every step up requires you to adopt the logic of the system. And by the time you reach the top, you are no longer the person who found that document and felt sick about it. You are the person who would have written it. You don't confront it. You don't join it. You exit it. Not dramatically. Not with a speech. Quietly. The way someone closes a book they've finished reading. You maintain surface relationships, holidays, birthdays, the functions of family. But you stop investing in the hierarchy. You stop trying to earn placement in a ranking system you never agreed to. And you start building something different. A chosen family. A circle. A small, flat structure where people are not ranked. They are simply present. This option looks like loss from the outside. Your family will interpret your exit as failure. As proof they were right to rank you where they did. But here's what they'll never understand. The most powerful move in any hierarchy is to stop playing. The thing about hierarchies. Here's what your grandmother understood, and what the document never says directly. Every family has a hierarchy. Every group of humans, given enough time, will organize itself into one. This isn't evil. It's not even malicious. It's ancient. It's what humans have always done to manage scarce resources. Resources like trust, money, time, attention, and power. Your grandmother wasn't a villain. She was a systems thinker in a world that didn't give her any other tools. But here's what the document also reveals. What she may not have known she was recording. Hierarchies are not truth. They are predictions, assessments, guesses made by people who had power over you before you had power over yourself. They are written about the child you were, not the person you became. You found a document you were never supposed to find. It told you where you ranked in someone else's story. The only question that matters now is this. What does your story say?